Hey, so it's me. You probably know who I am at this point. And we're going to answer a question that a lot of people have been asking recently. Will the U.S. increase taxes if there is a war between Iran, Israel, and the USA? So let's get into it. Let's first start off with the most likely scenario. A lot of people are assuming that this war will be similar to the Russia-Ukraine war, where there's a large-scale invasion across an international border. That's not going to happen here. It's not going to be like that. The Iranian-Israeli conflict is a multi-front conflict. It's going to be more like a regional conflict. So Iran is not going to send in troops from the West and take over Israeli territory. That's just not going to happen. Now, it could happen in the sense that Iran could attempt to do something like they did in Afghanistan and send in troops and take over a piece of land. But even then, the Israeli defense forces are far superior to the Afghan army. So it would be very hard for them to do that. Not impossible, but very unlikely. So what's most likely going to happen is some sort of attack by Iran on Israel, and then the U.S. getting involved. But it could also be that Iran attacks U.S. forces directly or attacks American shipping in the region. That would almost certainly provoke a response from the U.S. military. But the thing to remember here is that there is no certainty. No one knows exactly how this is going to go down. We don't know if Iran will attempt to invade Israel or attack U.S. forces. Or maybe there won't be any direct attack. Maybe it will be a false flag attack. We simply don't know. There are so many variables here, and things can change so rapidly that it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. So now let's talk about taxes. Will the U.S. increase taxes if there is a war? Well, it depends on what kind of war it is. The U.S. is already spending $14 billion a month on the Ukraine war, and so far Congress has agreed to fund that. But if there is a larger-scale war with Iran, then yes, the U.S. will likely increase taxes. There is no way around it. Either they're going to have to borrow money, which will increase the deficit, or they'll have to raise taxes. If it's a large-scale war, the U.S. government will probably need to spend hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe even more. They'll also have to pay for all of the military spending. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. The U.S. government should absolutely pay for its wars and not leave the burden on future generations. It's only fair. But the point is that if there is a large-scale war, then taxes will have to be raised to pay for it. How much will they have to be raised? That's anyone's guess. But it won't be pretty. Now, if it's a smaller-scale conflict, then the U.S. might be able to get away with just borrowing the money. But even then, they would still have to raise taxes eventually. The other option is to just cut spending elsewhere, but that's not really an option because most of the budget is already spent on things like Social Security and Medicare. Those programs alone account for about 60% of federal spending. So there isn't much left to cut. What does this mean for investors? Well, as I said before, no one really knows what's going to happen. But if there is a large-scale war, then it's probably a good idea to buy gold and other commodities. Gold is a safe investment during times of war, and it tends to go up in price. It's also a good idea to buy some bonds. Bonds are another safe investment during times of war, and they also tend to go up in price. What about stocks? Well, stocks are a little bit riskier, but they can still be a good investment during times of war. Just buy stocks in companies that do well during times of war. For example, defense contractors tend to do well during times of war. So you might want to consider buying some of their stocks. Of course, past performance is not indicative of future results, but it's still worth considering. What about cryptocurrencies? Well, they're a little bit too risky for my taste, but if you want to invest in them, then just be careful. They can go up in price during times of war, but they can also go down. So just be careful. So those are the things that you should keep in mind. If there is a large-scale war between Iran and Israel that involves the United States, then taxes will probably go up. The government will need to pay for the war, and they will probably do it by raising taxes. So just be prepared for that. But if it's a smaller-scale conflict, then it's still possible that they could avoid raising taxes. I hope this video answered your questions. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer them. Thank you for watching and have a great day.